I am a 32-year-old software engineer who made it big but kept my success quiet. Last Thanksgiving, I headed to my parents' home in Boston, excited to reconnect with family. The warm reunion turned into a nightmare when my sister Natalie accidentally spotted a bank notification on my phone showing $12 million in my account. The temperature in the room dropped faster than a New England winter. Before I continue this family nightmare, let me know where you are watching from and hit that subscribe button so you do not miss what happened next. I promise what followed shocked me to my core. Growing up in the suburbs of Boston, I was the eldest son in what most would consider a middle-class family. My father worked as an insurance agent, putting in long hours to support our family while my mother taught 5th grade at the local elementary school. From an early age, I showed a natural talent with computers. By 13, I was teaching myself programming languages from library books and online forums. I would spend hours in my room working on simple games and applications, much to the confusion of my parents. "Austin, why are you wasting time on that computer? Go outside and play like normal kids." My father would often say, his voice tinged with disappointment. Despite my passion for technology, my family never took my interests seriously. They viewed my coding as a hobby at best, certainly not something that could evolve into a real career. My sister Natalie, 3 years younger than me, received a completely different treatment. Her academic achievements and social activities were celebrated around the dinner table. When she joined the debate team or performed in school plays, my parents would beam with pride. "Now that is what colleges look for," my mother would say, giving Natalie an approving pat on the shoulder. As we grew older, the disparity in how we were treated only widened. When college time came around, I received partial scholarships to the state university for computer science. But my parents made it clear I needed to fund most of it myself. Meanwhile, they paid fully for Natalie to attend a private liberal arts college, arguing that her sociology degree would open more doors than my computer hobby. Throughout college, I juggled 3 jobs simultaneously, working at the campus IT help desk during weekdays, delivering pizzas on evenings, and doing freelance coding on weekends. Sleep became a luxury. I could rarely afford, often crashing for just 4 hours before my morning classes. Despite the exhaustion, I maintained a strong GPA and built valuable connections in the tech community. Upon graduation, I turned down several stable corporate job offers that would have pleased my family. Instead, I pursued my dream of launching my own startup focused on innovative software solutions. This decision widened the rift between me and my family. "You are throwing away real opportunities for some pipe dream," my father said during one heated phone call. "Do you know how many businesses fail in their first year?" My first 2 startups did fail spectacularly. The initial one, a platform connecting independent developers with businesses needing custom software, collapsed after just 7 months when our primary investor pulled out. The second, a security application for small businesses, gained some traction but ultimately could not compete with established players in the market. The failures left me completely broke. For 8 months, I lived in my Toyota Corolla, parking in different Walmart lots each night for safety. I showered at a 24-hour gym with the cheapest membership I could find, and lived on instant ramen and whatever was on sale at convenience stores. During family calls, I concealed my circumstances, saying I had roommates and was building valuable experience. My third startup focused on developing artificial intelligence security software that could detect patterns and anomalies far more effectively than traditional systems. I had learned valuable lessons from my previous failures and approached this venture with much more caution and strategic planning. For 4 years, I poured everything into this company. 90-hour work weeks became my norm. I sacrificed friendships, romantic relationships, and even basic self-care. My blood pressure skyrocketed, and I lost 20 pounds from stress and irregular eating habits. But gradually, our innovative approach began gaining attention in the tech security world. Then came the breakthrough. After a major tech publication featured our software, several larger companies expressed interest. Following months of negotiations, a leading technology corporation acquired our startup for $12 million. The windfall was beyond anything I had dreamed possible. Despite this life-changing success, I made a conscious decision to maintain a modest lifestyle. I upgraded from my cramped studio to a comfortable but not extravagant two-bedroom apartment. I continued driving my 8-year-old Toyota, seeing no reason to splurge on a status symbol vehicle. I only shared details of the acquisition with my co-founder Kevin and the financial advisor who helped me invest the majority of my newfound wealth. Unlike many in the tech world who flaunted their success with mansions in Silicon Valley and exotic cars, I preferred the security of knowing my wealth was carefully invested for long-term growth. The flashy lifestyle so common among newly rich entrepreneurs held no appeal for me. My happiness came from financial security and the freedom to work on projects I found meaningful. My relationship with my family had grown increasingly distant over the years. I visited once or twice annually, usually during major holidays, but these gatherings were often strained. Every visit seemed to include some variation of "when will you get a real job" or comparisons to more successful individuals in our extended family. Natalie had married Marcus, a commercial loan officer at a regional bank. They had 2 children, Jackson 6 and Emma 3. My parents adored their grandchildren and supported Natalie and Marcus, generously helping with the down payment on their suburban 4-bedroom house, co-financing a new SUV for family trips, and contributing to private school tuition for the kids. Whenever family gatherings occurred, I endured endless comparisons to Marcus and my cousin's partners. "Look how stable Marcus is with his banking career," my mother would say. Or my father would point out, "Your cousin Jamie just bought a house with her husband. When are you going to settle down, instead of playing with computers?" After skipping family events for 2 years, focusing on my business, I decided to attend Thanksgiving this year. The company acquisition had closed 6 months earlier, and I had finally caught up on sleep and regained some semblance of work-life balance. I hoped that perhaps now, with some time and distance, I might rebuild bridges with my family. Little did I know that this Thanksgiving would completely transform my family relationships in ways I never could have anticipated. The 3-hour drive to my parents' suburban Boston home gave me plenty of time to rehearse potential conversations. I had picked up an expensive bottle of Cabernet from a boutique wine shop, hoping it might serve as a peace offering of sorts. Pulling into the familiar driveway, I noticed several cars already parked outside. Clearly, I was one of the last to arrive. My mother answered the door with a surprised expression, as though she had half expected me to cancel at the last minute. "Oh, Austin, you actually made it," she said, accepting the wine bottle with a perfunctory thank you. "Everyone is already in the living room." Walking into the house felt like stepping into a time capsule. The same faded family photos lined the hallway, the same worn furniture filled the living room, and the same tension hung in the air as I entered. My father looked up briefly from the football game on television, offering a curt nod. "Look who finally decided to join us," he announced to the room. Various aunts, uncles, and cousins turned with expressions ranging from mild surprise to barely concealed judgment. Uncle Fred, my father's older brother, raised his beer in greeting. "The computer whiz returns. Still playing with those video games for work?" he asked, with a chuckle that made it clear he did not consider my career legitimate. I forced a smile and made small talk about the traffic on the interstate, the unseasonably cold weather, anything to avoid discussions about my work or personal life. 30 minutes later, Natalie arrived with Marcus and the children. My nephews and niece barely recognized me, hiding behind their mother's legs when I attempted to greet them. "We are running late because we have an actual family to manage," Natalie announced to the room, emphasizing the word "actual" while glancing in my direction. Unlike some people who only have themselves to worry about. My mother rushed to help with the children's coats, cooing over how much they had grown, while my father clapped Marcus on the shoulder and immediately engaged him in conversation about recent movements in the real estate market. I retreated to a corner of the living room, already questioning my decision to attend. Dinner began with awkward, forced conversation. Aunt Linda asked about everyone's plans for Christmas. Cousin Taylor discussed her recent promotion at the hospital where she worked as a nurse. The turkey was carved, potatoes were passed, and uncomfortable silences were filled with commentary about the food. Halfway through the meal, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Glancing at it discreetly under the table, I saw Kevin's name flashing on the screen with an urgent tag. I excused myself, explaining I needed to take an important call, and stepped onto the back porch despite the cold. "Austin, we have a situation with the transition team at Securitech," Kevin explained, referring to the company that had acquired our startup. "They are questioning some of our data architecture decisions and threatening to withhold the final payment installment." I spent 15 minutes walking Kevin through the reasoning behind our technical choices, unaware that I had left my phone unlocked on the dining room table when I rushed out. The screen displayed a notification from my bank's app about a scheduled transfer of funds, specifically moving $12 million from one investment account to another for tax purposes. When I returned to the dining room, the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. All eyes turned to me with new interest. Natalie, who had apparently gone looking for me and seen my phone, wore an expression that mixed shock with something darker, a calculation I had never seen directed at me before. I slid back into my chair, unaware of what had happened, until Natalie cleared her throat loudly. "So, Austin," she began, her voice carrying across the silent table, "since when does my brother have $12 million in his bank account without telling anyone?" The room froze. My father's fork clattered against his plate. My mother's hand flew to her chest. Uncle Fred leaned forward with sudden interest while Marcus straightened in his chair, his banker's mind visibly calculating figures. What I stammered, realizing too late what had happened. "Your phone," Natalie continued, pointing toward where it still lay on the table. A notification came through. Something about transferring $12 million. "Care to explain that to your family?" Every person at the table stared at me, waiting for an explanation. The turkey grew cold as the atmosphere heated with tension. My mother broke the silence first. "Austin, have you been keeping secrets from us? How could you not tell us about this?" My father's expression had transformed from indifference to a strange mix of confusion and sudden interest. "What kind of money are we talking about here? And where did it come from?" Uncle Fred jumped in immediately. "What are you investing in real estate stock market?" I have been looking into some opportunities myself, but it was Natalie who seemed most affected. Her eyes had welled with tears, though whether from shock or something else I could not tell. "Do you know what we have been going through?" she said, her voice trembling. "The financial stress of raising 2 kids, private school tuition, medical bills, and all this time you have been sitting on millions." Marcus placed a supportive hand on her shoulder while fixing me with an accusatory stare. "Family is supposed to support each other," he said solemnly. "Those with more help, those with less. That is just basic responsibility." I sat there, caught completely off guard, as years of dismissal and judgment from my family suddenly transformed into focused attention and expectations. My mind raced as I tried to formulate a response that would not escalate the situation further. "The money is recent," I explained carefully. "My company was acquired earlier this year. It is most of my life's work consolidated into that amount." "And you did not think to mention this to your own parents?" my mother asked, hurt evident in her voice. "I was planning to get some financial planning in order. First, I lied, knowing full well I had intentionally kept the information private." Natalie wiped at her eyes dramatically. "We have been struggling with our mortgage. $450,000 hanging over our heads, while you have been, hoarding millions." My father nodded along with her words. "We are not getting any younger, Austin. Your mother and I had dreams of retiring early, maybe seeing Europe while we still can walk without pain." Marcus leaned forward, slipping effortlessly into his banker persona. "I have a friend with some incredible investment opportunities. We could sit down tomorrow, look at some options that would benefit everyone." My phone buzzed again with text messages from relatives who had clearly been informed of my financial status via hurried texts under the table. Cousin Jamie wanted to catch up suddenly. Uncle Fred's son needed just a small loan for his struggling landscaping business. The warm family gathering I had hoped for had instantly transformed into what felt like a financial ambush. I promised vaguely to think about how I could help the family while trying to redirect the conversation to safer topics. But the damage was done. For the remainder of the meal, every interaction was colored by the knowledge of my wealth and the unspoken expectations that came with it. As dinner wound down, Natalie asked me to help her clear the plates and bring out dessert, an unusual request given that she had rarely sought my company in recent years. Once we were alone in the kitchen, her demeanor changed completely. The tearful vulnerability displayed at the table vanished, replaced by a cold calculation that shocked me. $12 million, she said flatly, aggressively, stacking plates in the sink. All this time, you have been pretending to struggle with your little computer games, and you have been secretly loaded. Natalie, it is not what you think I began. Building that company nearly killed me. I lived in my car for months, worked myself to the point of, do not give me your sob story, she cut me off. You know what is really hard. Raising 2 children, maintaining a household, building a real family, instead of just playing around with code. Her voice had taken on an edge I had never heard before. She turned to face me directly, arms crossed. You do not deserve that money, Austin. You just sat at a computer while the rest of us dealt with actual responsibilities. I have 2 children to put through college someday. Do you have any idea what that costs? I stared at her, struggling to recognize the sister I had grown up with. I worked 90-hour weeks for years to build that company. I nearly had a breakdown from the stress. Natalie laughed dismissively. Playing with computers all day is not real work. Try managing 2 kids with different activity schedules while maintaining a household. Then came the demand. I had been dreading I want half of it. We are siblings. Family is supposed to share. Half, I repeated incredulously. Natalie, that is $6 million. That is unreasonable. Unreasonable. She stepped closer, lowering her voice so we would not be overheard. What is unreasonable is you hiding money from your family. You know we have $75,000 in credit card debt because Marcus wanted the kids to have nice things. Before I could respond, my mother entered the kitchen, her eyes darting between us. She must have sensed the tension because she immediately took Natalie's side without even knowing what we were discussing. Austin, whatever your sister needs, I hope you are planning to help. After all we did for you growing up, putting food on the table, a roof over your head, supporting your education. I felt my patience wearing thin. Mom, I worked 3 jobs to put myself through college while you and Dad paid for Natalie's entire education. My mother waved her hand dismissively. That was different. Natalie had real potential with her degree. You were just doing that computer thing that nobody thought would amount to anything. My father joined us in the kitchen, followed closely by Marcus and Uncle Fred. Soon the space felt crowded with family members, all seemingly united against me. Son, my father began in his authoritative tone. Nobody gets that kind of money without a lot of luck. Real success is building something stable over time like Marcus has done with his banking career. One by one, aunts and uncles began listing financial needs, medical procedures. Insurance would not cover home repairs they had been putting off, investments that would surely pay off if they just had some capital. The pressure mounted from every direction. Something inside me snapped. Years of dismissal, of being the family disappointment, of having my hard work minimized. It all came rushing to the surface. Do any of you have any idea what I went through to build that company? I asked, my voice rising. While you were all questioning my life choices, I was coding 18 hours a day. When my first 2 startups failed, I lived in my car through a New England winter. I ate nothing but ramen noodles for months because I could not afford real food. Natalie rolled her eyes. Oh, please, you always were dramatic. Playing your little computer games and calling it work. Those games are now worth $12 million, I shot back. Marcus stepped forward, placing a patronizing hand on my shoulder. Look, Austin, you got lucky. Right place, right time. Some tech company threw money at you. As a man, you have advantages Natalie does not have in the workforce. The least you could do is share your good fortune." My parents nodded along with his words, and that hurt more than anything. After all these years, they still did not see my success as earned. It was just luck in their eyes. The conversation continued to deteriorate. Natalie became more aggressive, laying out exactly how my money should be distributed among family members, with her receiving the largest portion. My parents supported her every word occasionally, adding their own wish list items. A vacation home in Florida, new cars to replace their embarrassingly outdated models. The final blow came when Natalie issued her ultimatum. Either you share what you have fairly with your family, or you might as well not be part of this family anymore. My mother gasped, but did not contradict her. My father stood silent, tacitly supporting the threat. The message was clear. My value to them was now directly tied to my willingness to hand over my hard-earned money. "The money has changed you, Austin," my father said sadly, completely missing the irony that it was their behavior that had transformed the moment they learned of my wealth. I looked around the kitchen at the family I had desperately wanted to reconnect with just hours earlier. Their expressions ranged from expectant to entitled, but nowhere did I see pride in what I had accomplished or genuine love, independent of financial gain. Without another word, I grabbed my coat from the hall closet and walked out the front door. Behind me, I could hear Natalie's voice rising, calling me selfish and ungrateful. My phone began buzzing with messages even before I reached my car, but I ignored them all as I drove away into the cold Thanksgiving night, leaving behind what I now recognized as toxic relationships that had been disguised as family bonds. The aftermath of that disastrous Thanksgiving unfolded with shocking speed. Within 24 hours, my phone had accumulated 53 missed calls and over 70 text messages from various family members. Each communication oscillated between guilt trips and thinly veiled demands for financial support. Natalie proved particularly relentless. When I did not immediately respond to her calls, she began spreading rumors within our extended family. My cousin Jamie called to check if I was okay, while casually mentioning that she had heard my money might have come from some sketchy overseas deals. The implication was clear. Natalie was questioning the legitimacy of my wealth to pressure me into compliance. 3 days after Thanksgiving, an email from my parents arrived in my inbox. Subject line: "Your responsibilities." The 5-paragraph message detailed all they had sacrificed to raise me, followed by thinly veiled threats about potential legal action for family support, a concept with no actual legal basis. The email concluded with a detailed accounting of what they believed they were owed for my upbringing, calculated down to the penny. Marcus took a different approach. Through mutual connections on LinkedIn, he began contacting former colleagues from my startup days, claiming to be concerned about Austin's financial situation and asking probing questions about the company acquisition. This blatant attempt at undermining my professional reputation crossed a line I had not anticipated. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. For years I had internalized the narrative that I was somehow less valuable than my sister, that my career path was less legitimate, that my struggles were self-imposed and unworthy of sympathy. Now, faced with such naked avarice from the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, I found myself in a profound emotional crisis. Unable to process these feelings alone, I reached out to Kevin, my former co-founder, and the one person who had witnessed firsthand the sacrifices I had made to build our company. "They have no idea what you went through," Kevin said, as we sat in a quiet corner of a cafe, far from any family connections. "Remember when you worked through that bronchitis because we could not afford to miss the deadline, or when you sold your guitar collection to make payroll that month when the investor payment was delayed?" Kevin's validation helped, but I needed more objective perspective. I scheduled an appointment with Dr. Harriet Coleman, a psychologist who specialized in sudden wealth syndrome, the psychological challenges that often accompany unexpected financial windfalls. "What you are experiencing is not uncommon," Dr. Coleman explained during our second session. "Money often acts as a magnifying glass for existing relationship dynamics. It rarely creates problems that were not already there in some form. I also reconnected with Thomas, my childhood best friend, who had moved to Chicago years ago. Having grown up alongside me, he had witnessed the family dynamics firsthand, without being emotionally entangled in them. "Austin, I always wondered why you put up with their treatment," Thomas said during our video call. "Remember in high school, when Natalie crashed your car, and somehow your parents made you apologize to her for making her nervous about driving? This money situation is just more of the same pattern, but with higher stakes." Through these conversations, a pattern emerged that I had been too close to see clearly. My sister had always been positioned as the golden child deserving of support and resources, while I was expected to fend for myself. When I struggled, it was considered my failure. When Natalie struggled, it was a family crisis requiring all hands on deck. The money had not created this dynamic. It had merely exposed what had always been there. Armed with this clarity, I began formulating a plan to regain control of my life and my relationships. The first step was engaging Catherine Reeves, a family law attorney who specialized in complex family financial disputes. She drafted a cease and desist letter addressing the harassment from various family members and clarifying that there was no legal basis for their financial demands. This should put a stop to the more aggressive tactics Catherine advised. If it does not, we have options for restraining orders if needed. I made the difficult decision to block Natalie and Marcus's numbers and email addresses after forwarding them the legal notice. For my parents, I maintained a single channel of communication, email only, with the clear boundary that I would not discuss financial support beyond what I chose to offer. After careful consideration and consultation with my financial advisor, I established modest trust funds for my niece and nephew, each containing $50,000 accessible only when they turned 25, with additional provisions for educational expenses. The trusts were structured to prevent Natalie or Marcus from accessing the funds for any other purpose. This ensures your sister cannot claim you are punishing the children for the parents' behavior, my financial advisor explained, while also preventing the funds from being misused. I drew clear boundaries. I would consider helping with genuine emergencies, medical crises, or true hardships, but would not subsidize luxury purchases, vacations, or lifestyle inflation. I would not be the family bank or the solution to poor financial decisions. Perhaps the most meaningful step in my recovery process was establishing the Thompson Innovation Scholarship, named after my high school computer science teacher, who had been the only adult to encourage my early programming efforts. The scholarship would support low-income students pursuing technology education with special consideration for those facing family obstacles to their chosen career path. This redirection of my energy and resources toward helping others in situations similar to my past struggles gave me a sense of purpose that no luxury purchase could have provided. Working with the scholarship committee, I found myself surrounded by people who valued innovation, hard work, and perseverance, the very qualities my family had dismissed. Through this work, I met Sophia Martinez, a volunteer programmer teaching coding to children in underserved communities. Unlike my family, Sophia showed genuine interest in my journey, asking thoughtful questions about the challenges I had overcome rather than focusing on the monetary outcome. What impresses me is not the $12 million she told me over coffee after a scholarship committee meeting. It is the fact that you kept going after those first two failures. That takes real courage. Her words touched something in me that had been wounded for years, the desire to be valued for my character and determination rather than my bank account balance. As our friendship developed, I found myself opening up about vulnerabilities I had previously kept hidden even from myself. In Sophia and the community of mentors and educators I was building, I began to find what felt like a chosen family, people connected by shared values rather than obligatory blood ties. For the first time in my adult life, I felt truly seen and appreciated for who I was, not what I could provide. 1 year after the Thanksgiving revelation, I found myself in a profoundly different place, both emotionally and literally. I had moved from my modest apartment to a comfortable home in a quiet neighborhood, not as a display of wealth but as an investment in my own well-being. My home office overlooked a small garden where I could watch birds at the feeder while working on my newest venture, educational software, designed to make coding accessible to children with learning disabilities. My relationship with my biological family had settled into a new pattern. After months of silence, following the legal notice, my parents had reached out with a tentative apology, not for their behavior at Thanksgiving, but for perhaps overreacting to the news of my financial status. Reading between the lines, I recognized this as the closest thing to accountability they were capable of offering. I had established limited conditional contact with them, monthly video calls with clear boundaries against financial discussions. My father occasionally slipped in comments about retirement plans or home repairs needed, but I had grown skilled at redirecting these conversations without guilt or defensiveness. Natalie remained distant and resentful. Her Christmas card, sent to my old address, contained a family photo and a handwritten note mentioning how some people had everything handed to them, while others struggled. I recognized the continued attempt at manipulation and chose not to engage. Instead, I maintained a separate relationship with my niece and nephew through monthly video calls, during which we discussed their interests and school projects, carefully avoiding any discussion of the rift between their mother and me. The most significant change was not in these external relationships, but in my own perspective. The wealth that had initially felt like a burden, a target on my back attracting opportunists, had become a tool for creating meaning and positive impact. Beyond the scholarship fund, I had invested in startups founded by entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds, offering not just capital but mentorship drawn from my own hard-earned lessons. My new company focused on developing adaptive technology for children with physical disabilities, inspired by a scholarship recipient whose brother used a specialized communication device. We were still in the development phase, but early testing showed promising results that energized our small team in ways that profit margins alone never could. Through therapy and reflection, I had come to understand that money itself was not the corrupting influence my parents had claimed it to be when they accused me of changing. Rather, money was simply a magnifier, amplifying existing character traits and revealing true priorities. My family's reaction had not been created by my wealth. It had merely been exposed by it. I had learned to recognize the difference between generosity and enablement. True generosity came from a place of love and free choice, not obligation or guilt. It meant giving what I truly wanted to give to those who appreciated the gift for what it represented, rather than just its monetary value. The relationship with Sophia had deepened into something I had not expected to find after the family fallout. Unlike previous relationships where I had hidden parts of myself, either my struggles or my success, with Sophia I could be fully transparent. We connected over shared values, the importance of education, the belief in second chances, and the understanding that true worth had nothing to do with net worth. On this new Thanksgiving, 1 year, after the revelation that had changed everything, I hosted a chosen family dinner in my home. Around my table sat Kevin and his wife, 2 scholarship recipients home from college. Thomas, who had flown in from Chicago, doctor. Coleman, who had become a friend as well as a therapist, and Sophia, whose hand occasionally found mine under the table. As I looked around at these faces, people who valued me for my journey, my resilience, and my character rather than my bank account, I felt a profound sense of peace that no family obligation had ever provided. The $12 million that had once seemed like a curse had ultimately guided me to authentic connections I might never have found otherwise. The trust funds for my niece and nephew remained intact, growing steadily for their future needs. I had fulfilled my responsibility to them, without enabling the toxic patterns their parents sought to perpetuate. In time, perhaps they would understand the difference between conditional and unconditional love, between relationships based on transaction versus those built on mutual respect. Instead of letting resentment consume me, I had channeled that energy into creating systems that might help others avoid the struggles I had faced, both financial and emotional. The tech incubator I funded specifically sought out entrepreneurs whose families had discouraged their dreams, providing not just startup capital but the emotional support and validation many of us had lacked. Money cannot buy love. This much is true. But what my journey taught me was that it can reveal its absence. Rather than mourning what I had discovered was never truly there, I had learned to celebrate the authentic connections that had risen from the ashes of those broken expectations. Instead of seeking approval from people who would never be satisfied, I had built a life surrounded by those who shared my values rather than my DNA. Sometimes the truest family is not the one you are born into, but the one you carefully, intentionally create. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members over money or other issues? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences that might help you navigate your own family dynamics. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to protect their peace, even from those who share their bloodline. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, your worth is never determined by your wallet but by the courage of your convictions.